36 senators and the Gabriela party list have revived the proposal to defund the NTF-ELCAC after the outburst of spokesperson Antonio Parlade against community pantry organizer Ana Patricia Non.
Itong maling-maling mga gawain tulad ng pagre-red tag pati sa community pantry. So kumbaga hindi nila ipinakitang karapat-dapat silang nakatanggap ng ganyang kalaking budget. And if there are already calls from the rest of the Senate na huwag na silang pondohan, I would gladly support that.
Pinaka naapektuhan, hindi ako. Ang naapektuhan po nila, yung hundreds na pumila. So isipin na lang nila, kung itutuloy po nila yung mga ganyang statement, ilang pamilya yung walang iuuwi sa bahay nila. Ilang pamilya yung gusto po nila magutom.
Some senators see the rash of red tagging as counterproductive to the rising determination of Filipinos to set up community pantries, whose organizers are the latest to be red tagged by the NTF-ELCAC. Is it time to withdraw funding from the anti-insurgency program and channel it to Filipinos struggling under the pandemic? We discussed that in this episode of The Chiefs. Welcome to this special edition of The Chiefs. I'm Robbie Alampay, and with me online are Lucy Cruz Valdez of News 5 and Ed Lingao of One News. Lucy, Bok,
Hello.
good evening.
Hi, Robbie.
Good evening.
Hiya.
It's Thursday. Happy Thursday.
And mukhang NTF-ELCAC pa rin ang pinag-uusapan natin sa gabi ito.
And
Sabi nga-
community pantries din.
Yeah, community
pero-
pantries.
Pero good news
At
muna, good
least,
news muna.
at least, siya, go.
Umabot ng East Timor, yung community pantries.
Yes, I know,
Diba?
right?
May picture sa Dili, sa East Timor, yung mga
Yeah.
Pilipino doon, di ba?
Yeah.
Obrigado.
Actually, naalala ko lang, kami ni Ed, one of our earlier coverages was in East Timor. Magkasama kami dyan, di ba? And hindi po biro makarating dyan, ha? But that just shows na ang tindi ng idea, really powerful idea. And in fairness also, I think Ana Patricia has also said, hindi rin naman sa kanya yung original idea. She also saw the, but obviously this one has a direct link to what happened here.
Yes, right. And at least we have something else to talk about aside from COVID. Sabi nga namin. Okay, ngayon at least dalawa na yung topic na medyo paulit-ulit.
Okay. Hindi, sige, diretso tayo because we have a pretty important guest with us and somebody right now really at the center of this conversation. Let's begin tonight with Senator Frank Drilon. Good evening, Senator.
Good evening, Senator.
Hi, good evening. Magandang gabi po. Salamat po. Nandito ulit tayo.
Salamat din for
Sir,
being here.
let's start with, not just you, but kanina kausap ka rin si Tito Sen, Senate President Tito Soto. But not just you, give us a sense of the sense of the sentiment in the Senate right now when it comes to the NTF-ELCAC.
Well, in view of the recent developments, particularly the statements of General Parlade, from my reading, the Senate is not exactly happy and is prepared to review the funding of the NTF-ELCAC come 2022 budget. And I have been advocating for this, Ruby. I have been advocating for this. In fact, just a few weeks ago, I said the President should realign the budget for ELCAC and devote this for the cash assistance program of the government for those affected by the COVID. So, in answer to your question, the mood is not very favorable, and the senators could not understand how the community pantries are suddenly become communist party. I think General Parlade misheard the, the
But Senator, let me frame it also to get also to your thoughts. Because malaki ang pondo na pinag-uusapan natin, 19 billion. And now some senators like Senator Risa Ontiveros are calling for defunding. Kanina, as I said, I spoke with Senate President Tito Soto. He's saying, nababahala kami, pero wag naman defund. That would effectively abolish the entire program. Ang position niya naman is, maybe let's just weed out one or two personalities, he said. Where do you stand, sir? Is it about the personalities? Is it about the program?
In the first place, we cannot defund it now on our own because it's already there in the budget. It's already a law. And what can happen is that the president, if she listens to the senators and to the people, may want to realign the 19 billion anti-insurgency funds. In the General Appropriations Act, the so-called anti-insurgency fund of 19 billion, 16.4 billion is for the barangay development program, which is managed by the NTF-ELCAC. Theoretically, for the 822 barangays at 20 million each. These are cleared barangays. They are barangays cleared of insurgency. It is not for the barangays that are still controlled by the rebels. Mali po yan. This is a fund theoretically for the cleared barangays, 822 barangays at 20 million each. Now, so insofar as the funding is concerned, it cannot happen now because it's already there. It can be defunded when we craft the 2022 budget. But the president has the full authority to realign the 16.4 billion. In fact, just to be clear, the present General Appropriations Act in the law includes us among the projects that can be allowed under the Barangay Development Fund or the Anti-Insurgency Fund would be COVID-19 vaccinations and immunization. In other words, there is authority under the law to use these funds for vaccination. There is also authority there to use these funds for the indigent individuals. So if the president is minded to, he has the full authority under the law to channel or to realign these funds from the 822 so-called cleared barangays and realign it as ayuda to the NCR plus areas.
Yes, sir. But what do you think are the chances of the president actually doing that? Because that would spell a reversal of policy. Kasi si Yusek Badoy and si General Parlade, they're just spokesmen of the NTF-ELCAC, which is basically the entire cabinet. I mean, all the departments are represented in the NTF-ELCAC, which Badoy and Parlade only speak for. So in other words, it's actually government policy that we're talking about here.
I can't remember what they said. Did they say that they will maintain this? I can't remember. Ed, can you help me? What did they say?
Well, sir, no. What I mean is that what are the chances of the president actually reversing what Parlade said and Badoy said when the two of them implied and insinuated na yung community pantry ni Patricia noon has links to the Communist Party of the Philippines and the Aus Duterte movement. Yun po yung insinuation nila the other night insinuation ni General Parlade the other night and then the insinuation ni Badoy this morning sa kanyang Facebook.
In the first place, the use of the 16.4 billion in the ELCAC funds for COVID-19 vaccines, for immunization of the population, and assistance to indigent individuals are allowed under the General Appropriations Act for 2021. They are allowed. It's just a question of the President realigning these funds to the areas which would need the assistance. And there are theoretically 822 cleared barangays. I am sure that a number of them are in the NCR plus region and in the other regions where there is also a need to provide ayuda. So it's a question of policy. They, initially I thought that you have to realign. No, but reading the law, it can be defended. Reading the budget, the wording of the budget, it can be defended that the funds can actually be used for ayuda to our people.
I think, sir, that's clear naman eh. What I mean lang, sir, is that do you really see the President, for example, reversing the statements of Parlade and Badoy on the red tagging issue? Kasi yun nga po, it does seem to be NTF-ELCAC policy and they only speak for NTF-ELCAC eh.
And there are two issues, red tagging and use of the funds.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay? Insofar as the use of the funds are concerned, the General Appropriations Act, as I would repeat, which governs the disbursement of the anti-insurgency funds of 19 billion to the 822 clear barangays. My statement in studying the law is that it can be done because it provides leeway. Now, insofar as red tagging is concerned, we have filed Senate Bill 2121, which punishes red tagging by an imprisonment of 10 years. Because right now, that is not covered by any law. In fact, this position, our proposal that we should punish red tagging was included in the report of Senator Lacson adopted by the Senate. So there's a pending bill which I urge an immediate hearing on, Senate Bill 2121, which I filed, which would define and punish by imprisonment of 10 years those state agents or public officials who would engage in red tagging.
I guess to follow up on the question of Ed, do you think that the President will realign? I mean, it's one thing to say that he can, it's another thing to say that he will.
Well, that's his judgment call. He will sustain the misguided statements of General Parlade, policy statements that he has been making. I think the president could sustain that if I know the president from his public pronouncements. But what we're saying, well, and this is a political decision.
Yeah.
And you account for this to the people when election time comes. That's how our system works.
Yeah, but
Well,
Senator,
okay, the next question would be, if he doesn't realign, what would be the future of the NTF-ELCAC's budget, at least even just for 2022? Are you intending to move to defund it?
Well, yes, Lucy, in the present budget, I was leading the center in the Senate about the 19 billion anti-insurgency fund. I keep on asserting that, the records will show it, that especially the 2021 is an election year preparation.
2022. Yes. Right.
Yes, magagamit sa politika yan. And one thing we can do today, Lucy, is under the law, under the General Appropriations Act, the NTF-ELCAC is supposed to submit a quarterly report to the Senate and to the House of Representatives on the utilization of the funds and the projects that are implemented. Maliwanag that's specified in the law. So now I am giving notice that I will request the Senate leadership to require NTF-ELCAC, the General Parlade et al., or whoever they are there, to submit a quarterly report. That's required under the law. And let's see what they have used these funds for, because these are not small funds. It's not even an agency, but they are budgeted at a total of 19 billion.
Yeah,
So,
baka i-realign na nila at magtayo na nga sila ng mga community pantry ngayon, kasi mag-accounting na kayo.
but that's required under the law. They're supposed to submit a quarterly report. I am not aware that at this point they have complied with their obligation to submit a quarterly report to the Senate and to the House of
Senator, beyond the personalities, in this case, beyond General Parlade and Yusek Lorraine Badoy, and beyond even the NTF-ELCAC, this is, of course, a larger issue about red tagging. You filed a bill to define and to penalize once and for all red tagging, because yan ang binabaling ng mga people that a lot of critics want to rein in. They're saying, wala namang sa batas yang red tagging and so on. How would you attack it also in the context of what even Attorney Jokno threw in as a word of caution also? How do we do that, and how do we narrowly define it so it also does not run afoul of free expression?
Well, firstly, it only applies to state agents, meaning the police, the armed forces, the security sector of the government. It does not apply to media. Okay, so that's the first. That's the first thing I have to emphasize. Number two, it penalizes specifically red tagging without proving anything else. In other words, the element of the crime is the fact that you red tag a journalist, an ordinary citizen, and you are a public official. And we are doing this because in present-day circumstances, this red tagging has a chilling effect. And sometimes it goes even beyond the chilling effect. Nababaril ka pag ikaw ay nasabing komunista. So and the fact that there is rampant red tagging in our midst today only indicates that there is a gap in the law, and that is what we are trying to solve by filing Senate Bill 2121.
Don't you think there are actually enough laws to protect against that kind of crime, at least, which is a slur on reputations? We have enough in the Bill of Rights, for example. And do we really need another law? Or is this just a question of, well, the proper exercise of our laws and our justice system?
You know, the law is supposed to influence the behavior of people. Since the red tagging is not a criminal offense, those in authority will continue this practice, which has a chilling effect on the freedom of information and a chilling effect on the liberties of people under present-day circumstances. Maybe in another era, hindi po kailangan, but today we see the real need for this kind of legislation. And as I repeat, Senator Lacson in his report on these similar on the conflict between the armed forces, the security forces, and the left, actually agreed that we must work on a red tagging bill and not leave the situation as it is today.
Yeah.
Sir, by any chance, has that bill been calendared already for deliberations in the committee level, or I mean, how's it moving?
Sorry, Ed.
How's the bill moving? SB 2121, how's it moving?
Well, we filed it towards the end of the session a month ago. It has been referred to the Committee on Justice. No hearing has yet been conducted. So I assume on May 17, when we come back, the bill will be heard by the committee, I hope.
What is your sense, sir, of support, at the very least in the Senate, among your peers in the Senate? What's your sense of support for this proposal?
I have stopped trying to read my colleagues. You'll never know. I have been long enough in the Senate to know that the only thing you can predict tomorrow is that the sun will rise.
It'll be harder, sir, to read your colleagues in the lower chamber. That'll be even harder.
Yes.
Ay, sir, if you don't mind, tayo-tayo lang. Tanong talaga. I mean, given that NTF-ELCAC, as even General Parlade acknowledges, stands to lose a lot with all of this talk about defunding. And senators have spoken up, high-profile people have spoken up, leadership of state enforcement agencies from the police to the military have tried to call on him to stand down. No less than the spokesperson of Malacanang and the DILG have said there is nothing wrong here, stand down. Atin-atin lang po, I'm just curious. Bakit po napakalakas ni General Parlade? Because, I mean, let's face it, this is not the first time that people and our institutions and our leaders have called for him to either step down or be removed. Why is he so entrenched and so powerful in that position?
Well, I do not know, because that is trying to read the mind of the president. What I can tell you, however, is that General Parlade is illegally occupying his position as spokesperson of the NTF-ELCAC. Why? A first-year law student will tell you a cardinal principle in our Constitution that those in the active military service are prohibited from occupying civilian positions. He is I think, a major general in the armed forces. He occupies a position in the NTF-ELCAC, which is a civilian position, and that violates the rules of the Constitution. And these are one of my disappointments. Hindi na pinapakinggan ng Senado.
Well, ang sabi nila noon, sir, that it's actually a task force consisting of not purely civilians, but also members of the military. So that was how they justified it back then, when the Senate was actually asking Parlade to step down. What became your stand, or how did you defend at least your position that he's occupying the position illegally?
There are two there are two avenues to resolve this. Number one, through the budget. When we look at the budget for next year, we can take a position that we will not approve the budget of the NTF-ELCAC. We will defund it, given the violation of the Constitution by the spokesperson. This is a civilian position, no matter how you look at it. And he is an active military service. And number two, somebody can file a case in the courts, in the ombudsman, to get a definitive ruling from our courts on this violation of the Constitution. This is how the system works. Where two branches of government could not come to an agreement, you resort to the judiciary.
Yes, sir. Well, actually, sir, that brings up the question. If the Senate feels that strongly about the legality or illegality of General Parlade's position, why is there no move before the courts to question and to have jurisprudence on the matter?
I do not know. Why? There are groups who can do this. Why they have not done it, I do not know.
Yes, sir. But I mean, sir, from the Senate's point of view, I mean, it was the Senate that did point this out. The senators did point out this legal question or constitutional question, none of the senators are willing to take that extra step if they feel strongly enough about it?
Well, nobody is picking it up, so I don't know. There are certain questions in the operations of government which I cannot answer at this point.
Of course, Parlade himself has just said today that if you have any issue with me, then I will step down, but don't take it out on the NTF-ELCAC. What do you think of that?
So, given the fact that he's holding the position is constitutionally doubtful, why doesn't he step down to save everybody from the agony of...
So you do agree that NTF-ELCAC is needed, or that they do justify their existence?
This program, in fairness, Lucy, this program has been there since 2016, yes. In other words, the concept was the security forces will free a barangay from insurgencies. Now,
Yes.
after that, you have to support it with projects.
Right.
The whole of nation approach.
Yes.
Right.
So you have to build roads, etc. So the concept has been there since 2016. But
Yes.
these were in the budget of the different line departments. Agriculture, for agricultural support, DTI, Department of Health, Labor, Education, etc. Never before a military-led task force as the implementer. And that is where doubts are raised, because from a pure civilian undertaking by the different cabinet departments, which I will repeat, has been there since 2016. Suddenly, the budget is coming out of their ears at 16, at 19 billion. We do not such a huge amount, and now concentrated on the NTF-ELCAC versus the previous practice where it is where each department is given a role in the rehabilitation of a particular locality.
Of course, Parlade has said, well, that's your fault. You allowed it. You agreed to it. You signed this. I mean, you passed that General Appropriations Act that allows it. No, so in fact, he called you stupid in CNN for allowing that to happen. So, are you now saying that? Are you now saying that the group itself should stay? That task force should be there? That there's a good reason for it to be there? That the only problem is Parlade, and if we had to isolate him, and if we could, then solved na. Ganun ba yun, sir?
Lucy, just to make it clear, I was objecting to this from day one.
Okay.
Yes.
That's you. Yes. Yeah.
I have been objecting. It's on record. I have been objecting to it for the reasons that I have already stated. So it's really disrespectful, to say the least, if Parlade said that we are stupid for having approved this. In the first place, the reality also of our system is that Malacanang lobbies. It's by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. They lobby for this budget, including the budget for the NTF-ELCAC. And in the Senate, I questioned this. I placed safeguards, but it was accepted in the Senate. But in the bicameral conference committee, I am sure that Malacanang lobbied, and therefore it came out in the way that it is written today. So I take exception to that statement that mga gago kami, bakit naman in-approve yan?
Okay. Okay. Senator Franklin Drilon, maraming salamat po for joining us.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Ingat po.
you, sir.
Thank you very much.
We need to take a break. Please stay with us. The Chiefs will be right back. Welcome back, the Chiefs. We are now in the final stage of our conversation. Now joining us is Gabriela, Party List Representative Arlene Brosas. Good evening, Congresswoman Brosas.
Good
Hello,
evening,
good
ma'am.
evening.
Good evening po.
Ma'am, narinig
Good
niyo naman,
evening, magandang gabi po.
narinig niyo naman kanina, kausap namin si Senator Frank Drilon, and he was saying that, there are now 8 senators at the very least, reports have it, who support the defunding of the NTF-ELCAC, but as Senator Drilon said, even he would not hazard to guess where everybody else in the upper chamber stands. Now, of course, sanay rin ng mga Pilipino to say, sa Senado pa nga yan, mas masalimuot pa yan pagka dumating sa House ang usapan.
Congreso.
Do you think that there is any realistic support for a defunding of the NTF-ELCAC at the House of Representatives?
It is good to know. Unang-una po, it's good to know no, na meron na tayong mga senators na talagang sumusuporta na ma-defund. Kasi in the first place, kami naman po sa Makabayan Bloc, our position is hindi talaga dapat nagkaroon in the first place ng NTF-ELCAC budget. No? Yan naman po ang sinasabi namin. And kung pinag-uusapan natin ano ang prospect nito sa lower house, well, wala din ako. Actually, hindi ko rin masabi kung ano ang magiging posisyon ng iba ko pang mga kasamahan sa Kongreso. But definitely, meron magiging critical din. Kahit papaano, meron tayong mga makakasama siguro na magtatanong kung ano talaga yung nangyari or nangyayari ngayon sa budget ng NTF-ELCAC particular.
Okay.
Pero realistically po kasi, the Senate, realistically and historically, the Senate has always been perceived to be kahit paano more autonomous from the administration compared to the lower chamber. Kung sa upper chamber po, wawalo pa lang, that's 1/3 of 24, ano kaya yung chances ng numbers doon sa lower chamber? I know po, I know your position, I know what you will work for or against in this matter, pero realistically po, what numbers are we looking at in the lower chamber?
Hindi ko po masabi, pero kung pag-uusapan po natin yan, tyranny of numbers naman sa Congress, so marami-rami po dyan ang nagpasa, nag-agree for the budget of the NTF-ELCAC. Pero hopefully, with the current na nangyayari ngayon, nakita naman natin kung ano pinagagawa ng NTF-ELCAC spokesperson at saka yung mga tao mismo doon sa NTF-ELCAC, siguro naman meron na silang somehow, enlightenment na nakuha dito sa mga nangyari, na ano bang ginagawa ng budget na ito, and specific na budget na ito na alam natin na tinawag nga namin noon na general sport. Tapos, in fact, kapag i-realign naman ito or sabihin natin, ilagay sa ibang proyekto para din naman to sa kapakinabangan ng ating mga mamamayan. So, in effect, sa distrito pa rin naman, kung yun ang pinoproblema ng mga congressmen natin, sa distrito pa rin naman nila yung mapupunta, if ever, di ba? At ang makikinabang pa rin nun ay yung mga constituents nila. Ang problema po dito sa NTF-ELCAC budget, menu duplicate po ito. Kasi yung mga pinapatupad, yung mga projects supposedly na sinasabi nila na 822 barangays daw sa 16.44 billion na budget na yan. Ano yan alam natin na meron na rin yung mga project na yan ang mga district representatives natin. So ultimately, saan siya mapupunta? Mapupunta siya ultimately, alam natin, nasa discretion ng national government or particularly ng AFP. At alam niyo po ang budget ng AFP ngayon, pagkalaki-laki, di ba? 200 plus billion budget, pa tayo nag-uusap ng 33 billion budget ng AFP modernization. Napakarami pong budget na military ngayon. And PNP, hindi din tayo nag-uusap ng DILG. Tapos, itong 19 billion budget ng NTF-ELCAC ay dagdag lang doon. Hindi pa rin po tayo nag-uusap ng intelligence budget. Kaya kapag sinabi ng gobyerno na wala silang pera para sa ayuda, hindi po kami naniniwala doon.
Sa tingin niyo po, sa usaping community pantry, yaman din lang at napakaraming kumakampi kay AP noon at sa konsepto ng community pantry. Marami kayong kakampi dyan. At nag-file kayo ng resolution calling for an investigation into the profiling and red tagging of the organizers. Sa tingin niyo ba, makakakuha naman kayo dyan ng suporta kahit man lang doon? Do you think that other congressmen outside of the Makabayan bloc would give you the support you need this time?
Yes, thank you, Lucy, sa yung sinabi. Actually, oo, tingin ko naman malaki ang ating magiging support from Congress kung ang pag-uusapan natin particularly ay yung mga pantry, Kasi food pantries yung mga yan usapin talaga yan ng pagkain. So dapat talaga manindigan yung mga congresspersons, congresspeople natin para sa mga mamamayan natin na nahihirapan sa ngayon. So, tingin natin makakakuha tayo ng support dyan. Actually, ang problema lang kasi ngayon, we are not in session right now, Sa 17 pa yung balik namin. So, doon pa lang po mariread yung aming resolution. So, once na ma-read yun, so pwede na sigurong i-calendar kung kailan yun magkakaroon ng hearing. Hopefully, magkaroon ng hearing doon.
Assuming nga na mag-hearing sila ron, realistically, ano kaya ang kahihinatnan nito? Kasi
Next month pa yan, ma'am. Next month pa yan, ma'am.
Baka nga yung community pantry nun pagod na, no? I mean, we're not even sure. Realistically, di ba? Pero even assuming nga na, sige, susuportahan yan, what kind of I guess what's the end game for this resolution? I mean, what do you want to see?
Well, basically, ang nilalaman kasi ng resolution, ang gusto nating paimbestigahan ay yung mga law authorities or yung mga persons in authorities na nagko-question dyan. Yung mga police na pumupunta dun sa mga lugar ng pantries. In fact, ngayong araw na 3 pantry yata, community pantry ang nagsara because of red tagging and because of persons in authority. Yes, the PNP Pandacan yata, Antipolo, and I do not know pa yung isa. O Valenzuela, parang ganyan. 3 ang pinuntahan ng mga police and they were asking and profiling nga yung mga organizers daw nito. Very specific naman yung gusto nating malaman dito. Bakit nila ito ginagawa? Sa pagitan pa na nagkakawang gawa yung mga mamamayan natin. Tapos kulang na kulang yung pagkain. Kasi yun yung makikita mo sa pila. Kulang na kulang ang pagkain ng mga tao.
Congresswoman Brosas, I just want you to respond to something that General Parlade said it. But in fairness, I also sort of see the strain of that message in even some local government units. So, for example, sabi ni General Parlade, sabi niya, wala namang problema Huwag lang nila pasukan ng ideolohiya, huwag lang nila pasukan ng mga kung ano-anong mensahe. There are progressive groups, for example, that have set up their own pantries. And in a way, I understand. Sabi nga namin dito on the show, you can't avoid the political nature of this because people really are frustrated and at the very least, there really is a gap in the service of government. But given that,
right.
it's everybody's right. But given that that message is also subtly being adopted by even local officials who say, sa amin, okay lang. Basta wag lang natin pupolitikahin. What do you say to that? Not to General Parlade, but to that need to even qualify on dito wala tayong problema basta walang politika.
Actually ang position po namin diyan ay yung pantry very political po yan in nature, Kung titingnan ko po kasi bakit magkakaroon ng ganyan kasi meron pagkukulang talaga. Yun yung kailangan tanggapin ng government Kasi merong dapat managot kasi nagkukulang. Hindi talaga mapakain yung mamamayan natin. Meron tayong 16 billion na kababaihan na economically insecure. Meron tayong 27.3 million na mga nawalan ng trabaho ngayong Abril. Paano po ito ginagawa ng paraan ng gobyerno sa kasalukuyan? Very political po yung usapin. So wala pong maiuwi sa bahay ang mga mamamayan natin na walang trabaho and economically insecure. So kung ganun po natin ilalagay yun, no? Para maintindihan ng lahat kung bakit political ang nature niyan at kung bakit sinasabi din ni Parlade at pinipigilan niya ang political and civil rights ng mga tao sa pamamagitan ng pagsasabi na dapat walang ano dyan, dapat ganito yan, or kung ano-ano, sino siya para magsabi nun, Samantalang nagpapa-account tayo ng kung ano yung nagawa ng gobyerno with the budget na meron tayo. Remember, nagbayanihan 1, nagbayanihan 2 tayo. Meron tayong 4.1 trillion na budget ng 2021. May mga inutang ang gobyerno natin sa labas ng bansa. Pag-usapan natin yun, sa totoo lang, yung pantry ay manifestation ng mas malawak o mas malalim na problema ng ating bansa sa pamumuno at pamamahala. Kaya very political po siya.
Well, yes, we know that the nature, I mean, in the sense of the need being there, makes it political. Pero meron po talaga, and isasama ko na nga dyan si AP mismo, si AP noon, at napakarami po talagang nagtatayo lang ng pantry na ayaw talagang mapolitika. In other words, talagang kahit nakarapatan pa yan ng sino man na magbigay ng flyer doon or mag-rally doon or whatever, the truth is many of these starters of community pantries just really want to help on their own at ayaw ng mamulitika at all. So, ano ang reaction nyo doon na meron din naman talagang punto pag sinasabi nga na ine-exploit din yung mga yan, sinasamantala, sumasawsaw, at yun na nga, kumbaga yun din yung, sabihin na natin, yung pananagutan ninyo, kayong mga sumasakay nga sa mga ganito at ginagawang politikal ang usapin, samantalang that may not be the original intent, at least for many of these pantries.
Alam niyo po, naniniwala ko sa kalayaan ng lahat na makapagpahayag, makapamili, and mabigyan ng impormasyon. So, ibig sabihin, hindi ka naman pipirma sa 10K ayuda na ibigay na ng gobyerno kung hindi ka naniniwala doon. Hindi ka rin magkakaroon ng iba pang mga iniisip kung yun yung yun yung mga nakalagay doon halimbawa stop killing farmers, di ba, yun yung mga nakalagay doon, pangangailangan po o paggiling ng 100 wage subsidy para sa mga manggagawa natin, yun po yung mga nakalagay, and kung yun ang sinasabi na politika doon, tingin ko po, karapatan ng mamamayan na malaman yun, at magkaroon ng posisyon kaugnay doon. Kung wala man, it is also their right, na hindi sumama doon. Ngayon, kapag ang isang state agent nagsasabi na bawal yan, hindi pwede yan, ano pong pagtingin natin doon, di ba? So, may problema yon kung ganun yung mga, mga baseless accusations at kung ano-ano pa. O for example, ang sinasabi lang, anti-government, pero hindi naman sinasabi kung ano yung anti-government na yon. Yung policy yung policy na dapat bigyan ng ayuda yung mga mamamayan. Mali ba yun? Tama ba yun? Diba?
Well, yung Aus Duterte, meron din nun.
Well, oo, di ba? And it is also their right.
Yes.
Yung mamamayan, it is their right as long as mapayapa ang mga tao na nagpapahayag ng karapatan nila.
No,
diba?
but it politicizes it. It politicizes what is essentially just kawang-gawa. At least, yun naman yung kanila, which I think I'm gleaning from their statements. And it's not hard to see that, na, o nga naman, ano ba naman to? Tumutulong yung tao, biglang sinakyan nga ng mga slogan na talagang pampolitika.
Hindi, yung kasi yung pinanggagalingan, pag tinanong mo, malicious naman yung sinasabi nila. Parang ang sinasabi nila, don't do that. Karapatan nga yun ng mamamayan di ba? So ang gusto mong pigilan, yung collective action or collective na thought ng mga tao on their positions, on their stand on things, no? Hindi yun po pwede. Kasi ang pinipigilan mo doon yung political and civil rights nga ng mga tao. So, mas ganon, no? Hindi nasa burden ng mga tao yung pagpapaliwanag, kundi bakit nila sinasabi yon, sila yung nandyan sa posisyon. Silang may 19 billion na dapat binigay nga sa mamamayan para hindi magutom. Sila ang may 16.44 billion na mga pet projects na paano ito pinakinabangan ng mga mamamayan. Na in fact, ngayon, hindi makatawid. Hindi makatawid kasi nga, di ba, yung pantry pang tawid lang yun ng gutom eh. Ibig sabihin, ganun kalala yung situation na meron tayo. And you're saying, maliciously saying, no, accusing everyone na mali ang ginagawa ninyo or piliin ninyo yung mga ginagawa ninyo. Hindi po yun ganun, di ba? So dapat manindigan ang mamamayan natin na dapat ipaglaban nila yung karapatan nila.
I'm curious lang, not on the level of, what rights do people have. I think we're all clear. And we've said that directly to General Parlade. Look, whatever it is, problema nyo yan. This is the reality. If somebody wants to say Aus Duterte, if somebody wants to say hashtag Duterte Palpak, if somebody wants to say ayuda now, and everybody has that right. I'm just curious on the ground level. I'm thinking on the level of people because many, I imagine, a lot of these people who initiate this have been looking for an outlet, di ba? Tapos nakakita sila, okay to, tahimik lang akong tao, kaya ko tong gawin sa sarili kong sulok. I'm just curious. I can also imagine in the same way that some people will say, I'm uncomfortable kasi may police, kasi may military. I can also imagine people saying, uy, sino yung naglalagay ng karatula dyan at sinasabing Aus Duterte? Hindi ko naman sinabi, sinasabi ko lang naman. I'm just curious about that kind of a dynamic. I'm sure it happens. How would you handle that? How would you frame that? How would you deal with that?
Actually, sabi ko nga kanina, it is the right of the people, ano man yung level na gusto nila, di ba? Hindi mo naman yan madidikta. Ang hindi pwedeng magdikta sa'yo, yung government mo, kung ano yung dapat mong sabihin, dapat mong gawin, dapat mong ganyan. Ano? And eto nga,
kaya nga, kung hindi gobyerno yung nagsasabi, ang tanong ko is, hindi yung gobyerno ang nag-uutos. Kung merong, halimbawa, sa sulok ko, sinabi ko, ma'am, wala naman, wag niyo naman masamain to, wag niyo naman isipin na pero ano lang po talaga to, gusto ko lang po, I mean, for whatever reason, even if they can't,
Huwag naman kayo maglagay ng karatula
wag po dito, kung pwede lang po.
I think wala namang ganon, di ba? Wala namang naglalagay ng karatula sa mga pantries na hindi din naman ganon yung kanilang political leanings. Or wala rin naman silang sa totoo lang, meron dyan, naglalagay lang talaga nung kanilang mga gusto o tumulong sa iba't ibang mga pantries. It is the right of the people, ano man yung kanilang iniisip. Ang sinasabi ko lang po, hindi rin po pwedeng ililigtas natin yung pag-account doon sa mga pangyayari ngayon, sa nagaganap ngayon na kagutuman, sa matinding kagutuman na nagaganap sa mga mamamayan natin ngayon, na hindi rin natin pinapag-account yung government natin. Okay. But anyway, kung doon po sa sinasabi ninyo na ako, ordinaryong mamamayan, gusto ko lang naman talagang tumulong, well, kalayaan talaga yun ng mamamayan. Wala namang makakapagsabi sa iyo kung ano yung mga pwede mong isipin, di ba? Or pwede mong ilagay dyan, or pwede mong hindi ilagay dyan, ganyan. So, malaya dapat yung mamamayan sa gusto niya, sa gusto niyang mangyari, o sa gusto niyang messaging, o sa gusto pa man niyang abutin.
Okay. Yeah, ma'am, lawakan ulit natin yung usapin ngayon kasi kanina we also asked Senator Drilon about yung proposal niya nga to define and to penalize red tagging. What is your take on that, and what is your pragmatic prognosis for such a proposal?
Actually, maganda po yung proposal ni Senator Drilon. 10 years imprisonment para sa mga red taggers, tapos perpetual DQ yata ito no, sa position. So, ibig sabihin, talagang, actually, open naman kami doon sa position na yan Pero meron din naman kaming, we would like to add, na meron din kaming sinusulong na Human Rights Defenders Protection Bill sa Congress ngayon, particularly sa Makabayan. And I believe kasama din namin dito sa Human Rights Defenders Bill si Congressman Lagman, saka si Congressman Kit Belmonte. So doon, may provision doon, very particular din doon sa pag-penalize doon sa mga red taggers.
Ma'am,
So
but
parang,
usually kasi yung point of debate will be the definitions in this case, for example, how do you define red tagging? What constitutes red tagging? And how do you draw the line between what is punishable and what is freedom of expression? May mga ganun po. How do we wade through all the weeds?
If you remember po, pag-usapan natin kung kailan nagsimula hindi naman yan ngayon Dati pa kasi meron ng mga red taggers. No? At dati pa, meron ng red tagging na mga event. Kaya nga po yan pinag-usapan sa UN. At nagkaroon ng pagpunta dito ang isang UN rapporteur kaugnay dyan. So, ibig sabihin po, kahit noong 2005, 2006, nung pinapatay ang mga aktivista at mga progresibo, lumabas na yung issue ng red tagging. Yan po yung nililabel talaga yung mga activists as sila daw ay mga communist, sila daw ay mga NPA, sila daw ay armed kahit hindi. So ang nangyayari, nagkakaroon po ng mga nakaraan, nagkaroon po ng mga pagpatay, pagpatay. Halimbawa, si Zara Alvarez na isang aktivista, pinatay siya sa Negros because ina-accuse siya or nilalagay sa mga tarpaulin yung kanyang mukha ng na particularly ang NTF-ELCAC ang gumagawa nito, kaya nga hindi din namin maisip kung saan talaga dinadala yung pondo ng NTF-ELCAC kasi ang niresulta talaga nito red tagging spree, tapos pagkalat ng mga tarpaulins, tapos gawa-gawang kaso, tapos pagpatay sa mga aktivista, mga kritiko. So yun yung totoo na we should be really careful doon sa phrasing, sinabi niyo pang nga po yung definition. And I believe pag-uusapan naman yan kung ma-take up yung, anong tawag dito, yung bill, Yun naman yung natin. So we are still studying yung bill ng red tagging.
Okay. Congresswoman Brosas, maraming salamat po for joining us.
Thank you,
ma'am.
Maraming salamat.
Thank you, ma'am.
Maraming
Sige po.
salamat, Lucy. And anong name na isa?
Robbie po. Robbie Alampay.
Thank you so much. Maraming salamat po sa inyo. Sa uulitin.
Okay. Salamat
Sige
po.
yes, thank you.
And that's all for this special edition of The Chiefs. We hope what was discussed here will keep the conversation going. Before we go, a reminder to our viewers, mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. Ako po, si Robbie Alampay.
I'm Lucy Cruz Valdez of News 5.
Ako po si Ed Lingao at kami po ang One News.